Good afternoon and welcome back, ladies, gents and Pikachus, to another analysis and breakdown of the Quran of the Muslims. But today is going to be a little bit more easy to get through and less stress than last time, so it's just going to be a short reading. But like every day, if you have any doubts to my factual accuracy or question any of the things I'm about to tell you, please feel free to buy one of these from any good bookshop or from Amazon. Read it yourself and you'll figure out that every single word I'm about to tell you or have previously said is true 100% to the words of Allah and what Muslims currently believe. So if you've been paying attention and you were here for the last episode, you'll remember that we went through some rather psychotic and violent commands issued by Allah to his invading parties, including fight always for Allah's vow, kill all those who are on the front to Allah, and don't even think about taking any of that loot for yourself. You've got to give it to the mosque, otherwise you are a sinner, Allah will be pissed off, and you don't want that. So, today's going to be slightly easier, so I've made it shorter because it isn't quite as interesting as blood, guts and gore like we were getting yesterday, or this morning rather. But it's still important we get through this. We can't miss any bits out because at the end of the book we need to know every single word has been read and understood. So, carrying off where we left off last time, Sharia, this is number 4 now, Sharia rule number 4. And we are talking about what happens after your raiding party returns home from the battle. You've just taken all the wives and the children and you've killed all the men, you've got all the loot. Yeah, victory, Allahu Akbar, fuck those infidels. You've just done that bit. Now you're going back home to your mosque. 135. The prohibited month for the prohibited month. And so for all those things apply the law of equity. Actually, before I finish reading this is how bad Allah's writing is. He's literally like an illiterate 7-year-old. In fact, you know what? That is insulting to 7-year-olds. He's even worse than that. This is word for word what it says in the Quran of the Muslims. I have not made this up, and I am not prettying it up or making it any better than it is. The prohibited month for the prohibited month. End of sentence. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. That is not a proper sentence. That's like me saying, the football for the football. It's not a sentence, it's just a jangle of words that kind of look like they should be a sentence, but don't make any fucking sense. So I'm thinking Allah had a senior moment while he was writing this, and that is why I'm going to slave away and try and decipher the rambling nature of his words. He is definitely not a god. A god would know how to write a fucking sentence properly. Anyway, let's carry on. The prohibited month for the prohibited month, and so for all these things apply the law of equity. If any man transgresses against you, then you shall against him also. Fear Allah and restrain yourself to his given limitations, and murder not other Muslims. There had to be murder in there somewhere, didn't it? It wouldn't be Quranic if there wasn't murder in there somewhere. So let's break it down. He starts off by saying the prohibited month for the prohibited month, which I'm kind of guessing he's talking about Ramadan. And the reason he's saying that, he's saying, right, now that you've got back from your murdering and your killing, I'm going to say Ramadan twice in a sentence to try and get you to calm the fuck down. You've just gone into enemy territory, booted open their doors, killed them all, screamed Allahu Akbar while waving your scimitar around and taking loads of children and women hostage. They're going to be your sex slaves. You've got all the loot. And you've been singing to yourself songs of victory as you make your way back to the mosque with big piles of money that you just stole. So you're going to be kind of energetic, kind of het up, you know, with the bloodlust in your head. But no, you're back home now. You're no longer the master of war. You're now a slave of Allah again. So shut the fuck up, calm down, think about the prohibited month of Ramadan, the prohibited month for the prohibited month. That's the only reason I can think why he would repeat it twice in a sentence, because the sentence is only supposed to say the prohibited month. End of sentence, as in that's what we're talking about. Then he goes on to say, and so for all those things, you know, that we talked about in Ramadan, the prohibited month, and so for all those things, we apply the law of equity. Now what this means, breaking it down, is when you drag your big piles of loot back from the burning villages you just destroyed with all your slave women and children and all the heads of the dead men, we apply the law of equity to you, O Muslims, i.e. the mosque is taking all that stuff. None of that loot's actually yours. None of those slave girls and children slaves, none of that shit belongs to you, O Muslim, even though you did all the work for it. The mosque owns it because we apply the law of equity to you. So what this means is, now you've had all your fun, O Muslims, shut the fuck up, calm down, give us all your stuff, go and do your praying and your fasting and being a slave once again. That's what this means. If any man so transgresses against you, then you shall against him also. So what this means is, when you get back from battle, everyone's in a mood, or angry, or energetic, or like, you know, it's kind of like Randy for battle, if you like. So they're like that. But now they've come home, they have to calm down. Not only that, they're going to be pretty pissed off that they've just done all this work, got kind of half beaten up. Some of them got killed. But they're now having to give all their loot to the mosque. So it's like, you know, I'm pissed off. So even though you've just given all your loot to the mosque, what this is saying is somebody is going to transgress against you, because all you soldiers have come back and your pockets are going to be laden with stolen bits that you have hidden from Allah that you didn't want to give back to the mosque. So that is why I think he is saying, if any man transgresses against you, i.e. he steals anything from you or stabs you on the way home and says, oh, the enemy must have killed him. Any sort of bullshit like that happens that doesn't kill you, you can do it back to him. An eye for an eye. This is literally pre-Judaism. This is exactly what God in the Torah says don't do. An eye for an eye leads to everybody going blind. But that is what Allah is saying. Nope, an eye for an eye. If someone does something to you, you fucking do it back to them. And that's the end of it. And then it says at the end of the verse, fear Allah and restrain yourself to his given limitations and murder not other Muslims. So he's literally saying, now you're back from battle, give us all your money, shut the fuck up, go back to mosque, fasting and prayer. If anyone gets randy or rowdy for battle and starts attacking each other, you can do it back to them, but don't you be killing each other, Muslims, because Allah won't be pleased, because there isn't very many of you, and we need to go and kill those infidels, so we need all our men available. That's what this means. And restrain yourself to his given limitations is like what we went through yesterday, where we said a man for a man, then a slave for a slave, and then a woman for a woman. So if you kill someone's slave, you have to give them a slave. If you kill someone's woman, you have to give them one of your women. Again, proving that Allah values people's lives in coins. Doesn't give a shit about people at all. It's all about having enough people to go and kill the infidel. That's what he's interested in. 136. Only care for that which Allah hath commanded, lest you craft your own destruction. Complete your task righteously, for Allah loveth the righteous. So I think what he's doing here, he's putting a slight bit of tuning on that last law by saying, look, I know you've just gone to battle and got all this loot and stuff, and you've had to give it to the mosque, so you're kind of jealous at the mosque for having all that money and stuff you just looted. But only care for the things Allah tells you to care about. Don't care about the money. Allah's telling you, you don't really want all that money you just looted, all those sex slaves you just took that you just give to the mosque. You don't really care about those. Don't care about those. Only care about the things that Allah tells you to care about, or you be the the craftsman of your own destruction. So what Allah is saying is, if you disobey him by wanting to keep some of the stuff you just plundered rather than giving it straight to your mosque, you will craft your own destruction, sir, O Muslim. And then he rounds out that verse by saying, complete your task righteously, for Allah loveth the righteous. So basically Allah is saying, go over there, righteously kill all those guys and take all their stuff. Don't steal any of it. That's why he's saying do it righteously. Don't pocket the coins or don't hide one of the sex slaves so you can have them yourself. No. Righteous means you kill all those guys, you give all the stuff to the mosque, then when you come back to your house you stop killing and you don't whinge about the fact that you didn't make any money and you don't personally get anything out of this. Otherwise, Allah won't love you. Allah only loveth the righteous, which is the guys that do all the commands in this, and don't fuck it up in any way. That's what this means. 137. Travel to Mecca to give your blessings to... Blessings blatantly means money in this. Right, let me just read this. Travel to Mecca to give your blessings to Allah, unless you are perverted. So yeah, I think travel to Mecca means after you've had your fun with your battles and you've given all your money to your mosque, then you have to travel to Mecca and give them money. Otherwise, you're a pervert, in the words of Allah. Then you shall send your blessings ahead if you can't go. There we go. So he says, after you've had your battles, O Muslims, and you've given all your money away, so you're basically poor in your house with your wives and your concubines, now you have to go to Mecca on the other side of the world and give them money as well. So he knows this isn't going to happen. It's very unlikely that anyone is going to actually manage that. So he adds on the end, then you shall send your blessings ahead if you can't do that. So if you can't go to Mecca, O Muslims, just send them some money. It'd be fine. Send an offering in sacrifice. Grow your hair until this is completed. Take to your journey for 10 days and make your sacrifice a worthy one, for Allah is strict in his punishment of those who ignore his commands. I'm starting to think this Allah guy is a little bit too greedy to be a god. All he seems to care about is money and property. For all his whinging about how greedy the Jews are, this guy is the greediest mother... This guy is very greedy. I shall continue. So, the reason he's saying this, travel to Mecca to give your money to Mecca, because obviously Mecca is the big mosque. You're just a little mosque, and Islam is kind of like triangle. It's like pyramid marketing. The one at the top makes all the money. He employs two. Those two make half the money the top guy does, but has to pay them. They have two each. They have two each, and it's like a big pyramid structure. So the last most recent mosque to be built is the poorest one, and has to send money all the way back up to Mecca, which is the top one. But in addition to this, after you've had a battle and won loads of money, each Muslim personally is expected to go back to the top mosque in Mecca and give them blessings of money. Otherwise, Allah calls you a pervert, in his own words. And then he says, send an offering in sacrifice, grow your hair until this is completed. So I think... very difficult to read this, but I think what he means there is, because it takes 10 days to go to Mecca and come back, if you can't do that and you're at home and you're just sending money, you have to grow your hair for 10 days so that people can see physically that you are doing that. So the effect will be, other Muslims will look over and go, he's a righteous one, we better be righteous too. And then they round out this verse by saying, take your journey for 10 days and make your sacrifice a worthy one, for Allah is strict in punishment for those who ignore his commands. So what he's saying here, ladies, gents and Pikachus, is all this stuff will be very strictly enforced by Allah, which means the mosque. So if you don't give your money to the mosque, you're in big trouble, O Muslims. So like I say, Allah is just so greedy. All he seems to care about is bitches and money, literally. But I digress. We're on to the last one now. 138. Pilgrimage and sacrifice to Allah are a requirement, and Allah will see all you do. Whilst in your duty you will utter no rudeness, nor commit no transgression, nor amount any profit to yourself, for Allah will knoweth of it. Take a provision with you, but know that the best provision is fear Allah. So fear me, ye wise Muslim. End of verse. So the summary of that last one is, he's saying, while you're doing this pilgrimage to Mecca thing, by the way, that you will not be able to afford, so barely anyone's going to be doing this, while you're off to do the pilgrimage and sacrifice to Allah, don't do anything that's not in the Quran, because Allah is going to be watching you. Even though you're away from your mosque and you're in a foreign land, you're not with your guys, so anything you do is going to be secret. No, it fucking won't. Allah's going to be watching you, so don't do anything that's not in here, or you won't be worshipping enough and you will fall foul of Allah's strict punishments. And then he says, you will utter no rudeness, nor commit no transgression, nor amount any profit to yourself. Again, he's so greedy. So even when you're off to Mecca, traipsing halfway around the world to give money to Mecca, even during that massive journey, you are not allowed to make any profit. So if you, for some reason, make them, say you, oh no, they're not allowed to gamble. Say you find money on the road when you're on the way to Mecca. You're not keeping that money. You have to give it to Mecca. And if you don't, Allah sees you because he knows, he's going to be watching you. That's what this means. And then the last line, know that the best provision is to fear Allah. So fear me, ye wise Muslim. He ends it with a threat. So this entire 4-line thing is basically, give us your money or you're not wise. And if you're caught, you're in big trouble, O Muslim. Because Allah says so. That's all there is to it. So thank God for that. We're at the end of this very boring verse about how greedy Allah is and how he doesn't want to pay his people any money for their work, even though he's just making them kill and rape people and destroy towns and risk their own lives. They're not allowed to keep any of it. Even when they're traipsing halfway around the world, they're still not allowed to keep it. Even if they find money in the road, they're still not allowed to keep it. Allah wants that bag for himself. And that's the end of this video. So thank God we're through that. Tomorrow we'll be picking up with something a little bit more interesting, so revise on what we've gone through, watch the previous episode, which was better than this one. That's the one you want to know. When we move on to the next one, we'll be sure in our wisdom and knowledge of Allah, so we can go into the next one and not trip over the terrible writing from this illiterate 7-year-old druggy senior moment warlord called Allah. Anyway, that's all for now. Hope you enjoyed that. God bless, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now. Oh, for goodness sake, Allah, you're so greedy. If I didn't know any better, Allah, I'd say you were a greedy Jew. Anyway, that's all for now. Back tomorrow with more. I will see you then. In the meantime, God bless, and I'll see you in the next one.